Quick reminder before we get started on this episode. This podcast is based on my personal experiences and isn't medical advice. Road trips are supposed to be fun, but if you're gluten-free, they can get stressful fast. You're probably wondering, where are we eating? Is there anything safe at this exit? Do I trust this restaurant? What happens if we're starving and have no options? My husband and I just did a long road trip from Ohio to Houston, Texas, and back to Ohio again, and planning had made all the difference. So in this episode, I'm walking you through exactly how we handle gluten-free road trips, what we pack, how we research safe stops, what went well, and what went very, very wrong at one restaurant. Because by the end of this episode, I want you to feel like you've had a real road trip system, not just hoping for the best. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Gluten-Free Engineer podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Saunders. In 2011, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, a moment that changed everything. But I was determined not to let it hold me back. With my 2 engineering degrees, I set out to reverse engineer the gluten-free lifestyle, breaking down recipes, safety tips, travel hacks, and everything in between to rebuild a life I love. Whether you have celiac disease, gluten intolerance, or simply choose to live gluten-free, this podcast is for you. Join me each week as we simplify the gluten-free lifestyle, make it fun, and prove that you don't have to miss out on anything. So why do road trips seem so stressful for those of us who are gluten-free or celiac? They can feel stressful because we're not at home with our safe kitchen, with our familiar brands, with our familiar routines. On the road, there can be chaos, random restaurants, long stretches without options, unfamiliar kitchens. Fatigue plus hunger usually means bad decisions. So road trips are not where you want to rely on luck. This is where planning can really help you actually enjoy and have a lot of fun on those road trips. So that is my first biggest rule, is planning ahead. This can help you save everything and save your sanity. It is about not panicking and not making bad decisions and not getting too hungry and not settling. What we do is we love to plan ahead. We bring specific snacks that we love to have on the road. For us, we find a gluten-free, soy-free beef jerky for protein. We find some safe crackers or snacks that are good for us. We bring like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. On this trip, we actually brought Greek coconut yogurt. Another thing my husband did for protein for him on the trip was we hard-boiled eggs ahead of time. Apparently, if you hard-boil them and then peel them and put them in a Ziploc baggie, they can last for several days in a fridge. So we did that for him for breakfast. For me, I just did rolled up really clean turkey that I got at our local natural food market here. Had absolutely no weird fillers in it. So that was a great breakfast option for me, as I just had rolled up turkey slices. I also did the OWYN protein shakes. There's about 20 grams of protein in them. They are certified gluten-free and allergy-free, so there's no soy in them, no dairy, any of those things. So those were great for a protein to add to my protein for my breakfast. So that's how we handled our breakfast. Was we basically planned that our breakfast would be on the go in the car or in the hotel most of the time. And we had things that we could pack in that cooler and brought with us, that were dry goods too. Like we brought granola too to add into that yogurt. Now, as far as lunches and dinners, we knew that was going to be a lot easier to do on the go and in restaurants, just simply because it's hard to bring that much food when you're going to stay into hotels rather than into like a condominium or an Airbnb, because you can't really cook food in a hotel. So what we did was we love to use the Find Me Gluten-Free app. We have the paid version of that. It is with our discount, $25 a year. It is so worth it. Just think about, saving yourself from getting sick. It's so much worth it. If you are interested in that app, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I will have the link in the show notes too, but you can always go to theglutenfreeengineer.com/Find Me Gluten-Free. And I'll repeat that later in the show as well. But let me talk about the Find Me Gluten-Free app. What I do is I research apps ahead. So the paid version can help you with this because you can create collections. So I create a collection per city. So like I created a collection for Little Rock, Arkansas, That was about 11 to 12 hours into our drive, and that's where we stayed the first night. It's also where we stayed on the way home because we knew we would be leaving Houston about noon, and we knew we wouldn't want to drive a super long time. We wanted to get in at a reasonable time to be able to get dinner and then to be able to sleep for that long leg back, which would be about 11 to 12 hours back after Little Rock for us. So I used the Find Me Gluten-Free app to create collections at the different cities. So I created some collections in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then I created collections we were technically in Sugar Land, Texas, so southwest of Houston, Texas. And so I created, looked ahead and created some collections. So we had a general idea of where we wanted to go. Now, in doing that helped me find a dedicated gluten-free bakery in Little Rock, Arkansas. So that was our planned breakfast for the morning we were leaving Little Rock and going to Houston. And it actually was our breakfast on the way back to Ohio. So using the Find Me Gluten-Free app can really help you find dedicated gluten-free items, restaurants, You can also check a box that's most celiac safe or dedicated gluten-free, things like that. So it's really nice to use, and you don't get any ads whenever you have the paid version too. You also get a better map experience. So when you're in the location, when you're where you want to be eating, you can turn on location and use the map to find things that are really close to you. So basically I did a preliminary search when I was at home to get a general idea, and then while we were in the city, I would use the map feature to find things that are really close to us. So the key here is we just didn't look for food when we were hungry. We looked ahead of time. We had some options ahead of time, but then while we were there, we did adjust based upon what we wanted to do and how close we were to the thing. But we always had that backup plan because we had that pre-planned options. And then I want to go back to that packing list that I talked about right before I talked about Find Me Gluten-Free. When you're thinking about what to pack, I want you to think about packing your favorite proteins, fruits, and vegetables, and then, some appropriate carbs too. We want to have our body balanced, but protein's going to help us the most, as well as stuff with fiber in it, like the fruit and the vegetables. That's going to help us feel fuller longer, and it can help you on that road trip to make it easy for you to not be in a place where you're starving and you have absolutely nothing to eat. We always overpack. We always bring back more snacks than we needed, but that's actually okay. I would rather bring too much stuff and, bring it back than not enough and be scrambling for food, because, nobody wants to be scrambling for food whenever you are celiac, gluten-free, or have some sort of food allergy. So definitely find that portable protein that is your friend. We use both beef jerky as well as turkey jerky. There's also mushroom jerky out there for vegans and vegetarians. There's actually really good too. So there's lots of options out there. So one thing you can do is plan a little bit of a hotel strategy. And here's where we kind of had a bit of a miss on this. On the way down, our first stop was it was either Spring Hill Suites or a Town Place. I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of those ones with a mini kitchen in it. Now that was actually a hit because we had not really a full-size refrigerator, but it was closer to a full size. It had a separate freezer from the fridge. It was like a small refrigerator. So that was great on the way down because then we could put all of our groceries in it. We could refresh our ice packs to refreeze them. But our miss was when we were in Houston, or in Sugar Land, technically, our mini fridge was very mini. Like it was super small. So we couldn't even put the ice packs in the fridge. We just barely got all the refrigerated items into it. So I would recommend you plan ahead on your hotel stay and make sure that their mini fridge is at least a normal mini fridge size, if that's what you need. Ours was a mini fridge. It was very, very tiny. One time I had to put leftovers in it, and I kind of had to crush the leftovers box a little bit just to get it to fit in there. Thankfully, it was flexible and I could do that. So planning ahead on where you're staying can really help. So using one of those ones that's a suite instead that has a little bit more of a mini kitchen can help you with refrigerated items. Now, when we're actually on the active driving side, we generally will eat breakfast and lunch in the car. And we just pack accordingly for that. Now, you definitely can plan a stop for lunch, especially if you're using that Find Me Gluten-Free app to help you find some safe options. But don't feel discouraged to just eat in the car. I mean, we literally will just eat in the car and plan a bigger dinner for later that night, to refuel ourselves before we drive again. So those are a couple options. Some people don't think about that. They think they, are stuck in their old ways and think, well, I have to stop to eat every single time. You don't really have to, unless your body really needs that volume of food. For my husband and I, if we're driving, we don't need that much volume of food. And honestly, our kids don't either. If they've tagged along with us, we all tend to tolerate eating our breakfast and our lunch right in that car with whatever we've brought. It can really help minimize the decision fatigue and figuring out when and where to stop. So let's talk about the one restaurant that went wrong. Okay, so we researched, or actually this one was me. I researched some options in Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, I found this one Mexican restaurant that was supposed to be really good for gluten-free. However, I completely forgot about the fact that we both need to be soy-free. We got soyed so bad at this restaurant, it wasn't even funny. I was not feeling good for probably 3 or 4 days straight. After eating here, I don't think I got gluten. It was not my normal gluten symptoms. It was more of my soy symptoms. So one caution I want you to do is, if you have multiple food sensitivities like I do, don't forget your other ones. That was a big fail on my part. I just felt, awful for several days. And so even with planning, sometimes things can happen. So we just kind of want to be prepared for that. Now, I did bring some, I've talked about on the podcast, gluten digest pills, but there's also digest spectrum pills. That's what I use when I think I may have been soyed. So note that there are other digest pills out there too, if you have other food sensitivities that may or may not help you. For me, they do help some, but I definitely had too much soy for those things to be able to help me too much with them. So I want you to, plan ahead, think ahead, and don't forget about any other food sensitivities you had, like I did. Now, what I do when I'm using the Find Me Gluten-Free app is I will look at the reviews as well as the safety rating. They have both on there. So for celiacs, there's a safety rating. Sometimes I have to ignore the safety rating. Sometimes doesn't exist, or it's not very high. And I have to look at the comments and see whether this is a celiac person, what their experience was, what questions they ask. So when you're reading these reviews, that can really help you understand how well the patrons that have gone there, and how valid their reviews are, to make sure they understand what you need, as far as how careful you need to be. And also look for recent reviews. That's definitely helpful. See if they mention whether the staff says there's a dedicated prep area. See if they mention how careful the staff is. Many times people make comments about staff. It can really, really help. And then one thing I want to make sure you note, and I need to do this too after this trip, is go back and review those restaurants you went to that was very successful. There was a wonderful restaurant in Sugar Land, Texas. That was a Mexican restaurant. Yes, we tried Mexican again, but this restaurant had a relative or two that was celiac. So we felt very comfortable eating there. Also, the reviews on it said people had other food issues like dairy and things like that, and they were very good at accommodating. So we felt comfortable going there with both a gluten and soy issues and being able to feel safe. And let me tell you, I had the best chicken and cheese quesadillas I've had, and I can't remember how long, because I can't remember the last time I had a quesadilla. They could do those with corn tortillas. And the amazing thing was their menu marked when things had gluten in it, not when they were gluten-free. So that kind of told me that most of their menu was gluten-free naturally, which was kind of awesome and is something you normally don't see. So then let's quickly talk about some road trip emergency rules. 1, never let yourself get starving, because hungry you can get reckless. This is one thing. If I start to feel hungry, I will ask my husband to pass me a snack. Usually I'm the one driving. And then I always want to have some backup food, because even if you think dinner's handled, have some backup food just in case something happens, like you get in and everything's closed. And then rule number 3 is I always eat protein first when I am driving and when I'm on a road trip. That helps you keep your energy stable. So protein first, and then your veggies and your carbs. And then rule number 4 is assume plans can change. Closure, the restaurant could be closed. It could be a holiday. You didn't think about it. Maybe they're closed on a Sunday. Maybe they're closed on a Monday. You could have potentially delays at a restaurant. So just assume that plans can change and be ready for that and be ready to go in the flow with that. You'll have a much, much better time if you do that. And then lastly, I want us to make sure we make this fun. Planning doesn't have to ruin spontaneity. We, like I said earlier, we use the Find Me Gluten-Free app to create, a list of items, places that we thought were safe. But then when we were there, we decided to go to the one we felt the most in the mood for. We found some great, cool gluten-free spots like dedicated gluten-free bakery and like that Mexican restaurant that was really great with allergies. It really helps make it part of the adventure and having a lot of fun and enjoying our food. So at the end of the day, gluten-free road trips do not have to feel stressful. A little planning can go a very long way, and it makes the trip so much more fun because when you're focused on the adventure and not panicking about food, you just enjoy yourself so much more. And I want to mention again before we close that gluten-free, Find Me Gluten-Free app, just go head on over to theglutenfreeengineer.com/Find Me Gluten-Free. That's going to give you a discount on their premium membership. That brings it down to $25 a month as of this recording. It is a great gluten-free app. It's a great small team working behind it that really care about those who use the app. Hopefully these strategies will help you on your next road trip and help you become much more confident. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Gluten-Free Engineer. If you found value in this story, please share it with someone who might need encouragement on their own gluten-free journey. For more tips, recipes, resources, and even links to my YouTube channel, head on over to theglutenfreeengineer.com. It's your one-stop hub to make gluten-free living simple, fun, and full of flavor. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on an episode. And we will see you next week. The Gluten-Free Engineer podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. I share my personal experiences and stories about living with celiac disease and navigating a gluten-free lifestyle. This podcast does not provide medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional for medical questions, concerns, or advice specific to your health. Before we continue, I'd like to introduce you to a service that I really love, the Dinner Daily. It's a meal planning service that makes gluten-free life so much easier, especially for busy families. Each week, you'll get a meal plan with a grocery list that's customized to your local grocery store sales, helping you save time and money. You can fully tailor your plan to fit needs and select other food sensitivities and food preferences, and you'll still get one simple menu the whole family can enjoy. And right now, you can get 20% off a full year membership at less than $4 a month with code GFE at thedinnerdaily.com. No more what's for dinner stress, just simple family-friendly meals made for the way you eat. Now back to the show.